Hey everybody, welcome to the GMI Rocket Show. Today's episode number 127. I'm your host, Roman Zelichenko. I am an immigration attorney turned entrepreneur, the founder of Laborless, an immigration tech company that automates H-1B visa compliance, and also the founder of GMI Rocket, which is a digital marketing agency focused on the immigration and global mobility industry, and of course, which brings you this show. Today, we are really honored to get two special guests that are tuning in all the way from India, which is exciting, and I'm so grateful to them because it's pretty late right now in India. We are speaking to Sunder and Shrikanth, who are the co-founders of a company called Immidart Technologies. So Immidart is a company, as we'll see, that kind of grew out of this collaboration between large technology needs, so enterprise immigration needs, and immigration services, and sort of they joined forces and thought about what is the best way to build technology for companies, surely that are based in India, but that are based anywhere that handle U.S. immigration that at high volumes, and what is the tech that they need for themselves internally. So it's really exciting. We have a lot of companies on this show that really focus on great technology for immigration lawyers and practitioners. But it's not as often where you see tech that's kind of purpose-built for companies and enterprises in-house. So I'm excited for this conversation. Before we get started, I do want to say thank you to the main sponsor of this episode, which is DocketWise. As I mentioned, DocketWise actually is an immigration technology company focused mostly on immigration service providers. So they provide an all-in-one immigration case management system and platform with best-in-class forms, really customizable questionnaires for clients to fill out in a number of different languages. Wonderful and industry-leading integrations, including with Laborless, my company, and great customer service. They're a wonderful team. DocketWise also creates a lot of content for the industry, which I always mention because I appreciate it. They have an ebook, they have webinars, they have a blog, and they have a podcast actually with their co-founder James on it. And they support shows like this that enable us to create even more content for the industry. So if you're interested in learning about DocketWise for your law firm or for your in-house team, if you're interested in that, check them out at www.docketwise.com or check the link in the show notes. So I'm excited for this conversation. Shrikanth, Sunder, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for staying up late to talk to me and share your story with the audience.
Thank you, Roman. A pleasure to be on this 127th episode of your podcast. We are pretty excited to be here, and we look forward to the lively discussion that we are going to have over the next 1 hour.
Likewise.
Thank you, Roman.
Yeah, likewise. It's nice that I've had a chance to meet both of you in India a couple of times, which is just such a pleasure. And I just as a side note, I always wanted to. I probably mentioned this to you both, but I always wanted to go to India when I was younger. But it felt, first of all, the country's so big and there's so much diversity within the country, and it's far away. I always told myself, I'll go later. I'll go. I kept pushing it off. So I'm just so happy that there have been really nice immigration conferences to kind of give me more of a work reason, where I don't have to think to myself, this is the perfect time. And I'm so glad I went. And now I've gone 2 years in a row, and I hope, honestly, I kind of want to go every year. I mean, it doesn't even feel like a big deal anymore.
I think it's your calling. You're going to come back every year. And the best thing that you did was you didn't just participate in the conferences. You actually went ahead and experienced the real India by going on whatever your journey of yoga, eating at places that Indians eat, not just the five-star hotels, right?
Yeah.
So I think you've got a good feel of what India actually is, so diverse and so vast.
Well, that's thanks to you guys too for showing me some information. So actually, look at this. We already have a comment. I was going to say, Ari Zahavi says, is this available for download? So Ari, thank you for your comment. Once we're done with the conversation, it will be available on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook. So please, stick around if you can. But if not, please check back in after we're done. For anybody who's watching or listening live, please ask questions, leave comments, and we'd love to, address them while we're here. Okay, so we're going to get to Immidart. We're going to get to, how you guys got together as co-founders and built this company. But first, as always, I like to start a little bit on in terms of the background of each guest. So, Sunder, I'll start with you, and Shrikanth, if I'll ask you to be patient for a few minutes while we dive into Sunder's story. So Sunder, I know you're kind of the, I mean, if I may, you're the sort of entrepreneur in this room, right? I mean, you've started a number of businesses, and you've eventually you went on to, of course, start Immidart. But can you talk a little bit about, are you from Bangalore? I know you guys both live there now. Is this where you were born and grew up, around that area?
No, I wasn't born in Bangalore. I was born in a smaller place called Coimbatore, further down south in Tamil Nadu, a state
Mm-hmm.
called Tamil Nadu. But I've lived in different places. I've lived in Hyderabad. I did spent my entire childhood in Hyderabad. Then came down to Coimbatore back to study, and then went back to start my career in Chennai, and then started my business there, and then migrated to Bangalore. So it's been quite all around, but right now I can say I've spent most of my life in Bangalore right now. So
Do you
that's how, yeah.
do you feel, is it common to kind of travel around so much, with as a child, and then for university somewhere for schooling, and then to go to yet another city for work? Is that more common?
No, it's not that common. People do go to other cities for their graduation. That is pretty common because you go to wherever you get admission to a university. But my situation was a little unique in the sense that I had my parents working in the government, so they could get transferred, due to which I had to go to different cities. So that's the reason why I had a taste of multiple places during my childhood.
I see. Yeah, that happens actually a lot in the U.S. as well.
Yeah.
When families have government, especially military,
Yes.
families, the childhood there is 2 years here, 2 years there. It's interesting because on the one hand, I guess it's hard to, sometimes you can maintain friendships, but it is a little harder to maintain friendships when you're small. On the other hand, I mean, especially as they get older, I mean, these individuals, they have such a incredible experience already in life, seeing so many different places and meeting so many different people. So cool. So you ended up, you mentioned that you came after your graduation, and you started working in Chennai, which I really was going to try to visit this year, but I didn't get a chance. So hopefully next year I'll be able to visit. What was that first job? I mean, what did you graduate with, and what were you thinking about doing as a professional for your career?
So I had done my engineering in my undergrad, and then did my master's in business administration post that, and I had landed up a job in a resorts, holidays and resorts company, which was one of the premier companies at that point of time. This was way back in 1995, and that was my first job. And I just started a career. I probably had no inkling that I would end up as an entrepreneur, but all this moving around places and facing various challenges had made me much more adaptable. But by 3 years into my job, I think I came across like minded people who were co workers and their friends, some of whom were at that point of time doing their graduation at Stanford. And we used to meet during the summers, and I was intrigued by all the startup things that they were talking about. And this was prior to the dot com era.
Mhm.
And this was very intriguing, and it kind of captivated me and drew me into their conversations. And then with a roommate of mine, we started a mail service prior to 2000, which was kind of like a hotmail, but was trying to bridge the gap between the internet haves and the internet have nots.
Hmm.
So the internet haves were the students who were studying in the US, Indian students who were studying in the US. The have nots were the parents back in India who absolutely had no access to internet at that point of time. This was even prior to your cyber cafes and those periods. So we came up with a bridge mail service, which kind of had a Hotmail interface. You send a mail, gets printed out in India, sent through snail mail, and then back gets scanned and posted back to your mailbox. This service was called Bharat Mail, and it became incredibly popular. We had 500,000 users at that point of time.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
but this was prior to the dot-com era, and once internet penetration started coming into India, then the service kind of morphed. The need for that connectivity between email and snail mail diminished, and we
Mhm.
had to pivot into different areas. So we went into support services for parents of these students and other
Oh, wow.
non-resident Indians, and that's how the business pivoted. And unfortunately, in that era, there we talked a lot about advertising, but there was no advertising infrastructure. Google wasn't around, so the revenue models were a little flimsy. We had eyeballs, but we didn't know how to monetize it. So things became difficult, and during that difficult time, we had TTK Group, which was looking at a similar business model, was again struggling with ability to implement it because they were more of the traditional businesses, and there was a perfect fit. So we said, okay, let's marry, and we merged our company into the TTK Group, and that's how I moved into the group in 2002. Since then, whatever was the initial business idea again has pivoted and morphed multiple times. I can't imagine what we started with and what we ended up with and what we are going to end up with, because that's how you survive as a startup. You ensure that you have a business that is long enough in action and not doesn't fold up quickly. So the business model has changed several times, but eventually we got into documentation services, which we were pretty good at, and that finally ended up into immigration documentation support. So we run a very successful immigration support services where we support all the large IT companies in India for the last 20 odd years. We've been supporting them on their work permit documentation, visa documentation as services. And that's how this business kind of panned out in the last 20 years.
It's amazing, especially when you kind of mention it so succinctly, to see it when you look back, it makes perfect sense. That, and that's why when you said, because I have a few questions that I want to kind of ask you there, but when you said that as internet became more or internet access became more common, the need for your kind of bridge company, the
Yeah.
Bharat, right,
But
diminished. But you still had these customers that trusted you, that have, I'm assuming they've been paying you, and so as a business person, you turn around, you say to them, okay, what we've been providing you isn't really giving you the same value. What else can we do for you? How else can we support you? Because we already work together. And it seems that the answer was, well, we don't need to communicate with our children or family members anymore who are in America, but we do need some support for their documents or whatever it is, because they're there and we are here, and there's other needs. So I love that. It's such a great lesson, because you saw the landscape, you saw, I guess, the business started maybe decreasing in terms of revenue, and you could have chosen to say, you know what, we had our fun, it's over, let me close the business and go back to get a new job. Or you could have said, okay, let's sit down and take this as an opportunity to think about what's the next thing that we could do.
yeah,
I want to ask you before we jump into that. You were working at. I mean, I have your LinkedIn profile open, so you were working at Sterling Holiday Resorts. I think that's the
yeah,
company you mentioned
yeah,
first,
yeah,
and then you worked after that. It looks like you did a couple of years at Mahindra.
yeah,
So those were
yeah,
jobs where you were an employee at a
yeah,
larger organization. Do
yeah.
you remember? And I know this was a while ago, but do you remember what sort of prompted you to say, "This has been fun, but I need to build my own business"? I mean, it's a risk, and you had great. You had your MBA, you had your undergraduate degree. This was a time the mid to late 90s when technology in India, like technology support, was a booming industry. And so, as far as I've read, this is where a lot of professionals are starting to make really good, money as like the India IT services. And you
Yeah.
said, forget it, I'm going to go start my own business. What came over you, that you decided to take that risk at the time?
So I think we were sort of moonlighting for almost about 18 months. I was in a job, but we used to come back home and work late nights in scanning all these documents. So my house used to look like a post office. At a max, we were processing about 5,000 letters a day.
Wow.
So we had a team of people who were doing it. So we were doing this, and then at some point we said, look, this is scalable, and we need to get out and do it full time. This is not something you can do part time. And fortunately for us, there was some angel funding that we were able to get across to, and that helped us cross the bridge. And I think by then the bug of excitement of doing a startup, doing things, I think anybody who does it once, if they have loved it, they would just not let go of it. But if you're not cut out for entrepreneurship, then you would probably withdraw back quickly. So I think the first time, even though it was extremely tough times, there were times when we didn't have money to pay salaries, but we still stuck on because I think we had a passion for it. And that's the defining factor for entrepreneurship. It's a journey, there is no destination. Like today, people think that getting a funding is a big milestone and that's it. Or they think a buyout or an IPO is a milestone and that's it. But you have to look at the longevity of companies, whether they are there in business providing services and values to customers over a long period of time. That should be another motive that every entrepreneur should have. Yeah,
Definitely. Definitely
yeah,
agree with that. I love that. So Shrikant, give me one. I want to bring you in a minute, but I
yeah,
have one more question for you, Sundar, because
yeah.
I wanted to ask you. Well, okay, two more questions. So the
Okay.
first question is, when Bharat started to decline because of the changes of the landscape, and wasn't as much of a need. Um, was it difficult for you, or I guess how did you approach talking to your clients with this reality that the business is kind of changing, and to get information out of them to decide how to pivot? Because and the reason I ask this is because I think a lot of business owners, especially if business is going well, they're happy. If
Yeah,
business is not going well, it's very easy, as you said, to retreat and go back to your job or something. And I think it takes a certain amount of confidence in yourself, confidence in your abilities to go out to your clients and say, look, this is the reality, but I want to keep working with you, I want to keep supporting you. How can I do that? So I'm just wondering, you know how did you approach it, or maybe what do you recommend for maybe for others to who are going through something like that to approach that kind of a situation?
I think if your customers trust you and you've been providing a great service and value addition to your customers, they'll be open to listening to you and listening and being able to give you feedback on what else can you do for them. And I mean, if wherever you are not confident, you will not be able to go back to the customer and ask them, what else can I do for you? But where you're confident, you should be able to go back to them and find other pain points that you can probably solve for them. And that will ensure that you are able to transition to a new business idea or a new business model that will be probably successful for that particular period of time or whatever. It's relevant,
Yeah.
right? So I would say important thing is to focus on delivering value to your customers at every point of time and listening to feedback from your customer, because end of the day I think whatever Immidart is today is because we've been listening to customers and delivering what they want. Some of it may not exactly be the best things, then we do push back and say, hey, this is not the best practice. Maybe this is how it should be. But most of the time, your customers actually are the guiding light for any kind of product success. So we should just listen to our customers.
And probably when you listen to them so intently, it builds strong relationships where you feel comfortable going to them and being honest and saying, listen,
Yes.
we want to provide a certain different service or pivoting.
Yeah.
um,
For
Amazing.
for instance, when we pivoted into immigration support services, Wipro was the first client, and it is still a client. So you can understand. It's been 2005 to now 2025, 20 odd years we have rode through together. So that's the kind of partnership that you should work towards with all your clients. If you do that, then they will tell you which way to go.
So that is the perfect opportunity for me to say thank you, Sundar, for giving us your background. I'll pause with you for a moment, and Shrikanth, I want to bring you in. Thank you for being so
Yeah.
patient
Yeah.
and sitting and listening. Hopefully, you learned something new, maybe about Sundar's journey there. So I want to bring you in to talk a little bit about your background and sort of how you ended up in this position too. So you're, as far as I know, your background is a little bit more, a little bit different. Yeah, like you're not the traditional entrepreneur. I think from what I've seen, you're more of came up the corporate ladder, and then you started to see the opportunities and what was needed. So can you talk a little bit about maybe your background? You come from, I guess, more of a finance role and a finance background. Can you talk a little bit about that first career, that first kind of those early those study days, and eventually how you made your way over into Wipro to run immigration?
Thanks, Roman. First of all, like a lot about your passion for the exploring things and the energy levels what you have, right? And that's something I always salute and I always talk about
Thank
within
you.
my group, and I'm very fan of that of you what you do around it, right?
Thank you.
Now, coming back to my background kind of thing, I grew up in a very small town like what Sundar did, and it was more in coastal Karnataka, and I was a very studious kid as such, right? So I grew up over there, and then I got into commerce as I graduated from commerce, and I was a university topper, and I have been throughout kind of my school days. I used to be within top three kind of thing. That's how I've been focused on my study. And post my graduation in commerce, I did pursued my CA, which is something like your CPA in US, right? So that's something what I pursued, and then I took a full change in my career, right? So I didn't had any specific thing that I need to get into a big corporate or I need to start something on my practice kind of thing. I think a lot of things in my life happened by accident. Maybe the good things I would say. So so one of the thing what happened is in one of the social gathering I met somebody, and he requested me, why can't you come to Africa? There's a good position available kind of thing. So for my first kind of assignment was in Nairobi, Africa, and I lived there for almost 5 years. And
Wow.
that assignment made me to travel multiple countries, explore a lot of things, especially into the Far East. And I landed up in a places where there was no English and the communication was very difficult. That's how I learned a lot of challenges associated with the travel, and that's how the passion towards to travel, immigration came up. It was coming up from there, and I worked there for almost 5 years. And post that, what happened is when I was in a family way, I decided no, it's time to go back to India and let the family come up along with the grandparents. So that's how I decided no, let me move back to India. And when I landed up in India again, I think I got an opportunity to work with Wipro, and I was hired for kind of a global allowance role, which is more closer to the finance domain. So that's I took it. But again, something happened. As I told, right, that most of things happened in my life by accident, but they're all for good. And one of the senior person in the immigration domain over there on the handling the ROW, which is rest of the world countries, he resigned. So the Wipro requested, can you take up this role also? I didn't have much knowledge about the immigration, but somehow I was convinced, okay, let me explore this. So I'm completely into a thing or a domain which is out of my finance domain or my the way I learned. But trust me, that was a great move what I did. And post that, the last 2 decades, what I've been into the immigration industry, and I've been fortunate to have a good boss with me. And I think Sundar took his name, Mr. Vasudev Naik, right? He was a good mentor, and I think he was always been considered as a fatherly figure in Indian immigration at that point of time. And everyone used to look at him for any of the solution. And he was kind of a great person who had a lot of out of box thinking, and his passion to the automation was really great. And that's how we have been mentored throughout in our career, how to automate the things and how you can do the things better, faster, in a much improved efficient way. That's something have been groomed. And one credit I think I always be grateful to Wipro is Wipro gives us a lot of opportunity in terms of to innovate or in terms of to take on your own decisions. And it's very important to say Wipro brought a lot of leaders into the market, right? And there are a lot of people in most of the companies today are headed by either by Wipro or the people who worked in Infosys. That's something is really good. And I think that what are the qualities or the opportunities what Wipro gave us, I think that's something is really helping us to be an entrepreneur today. That's how the entire journey started, and it gave us a lot of flexibility for us in terms of the way we work, and an opportunity to travel to multiple countries. I think I traveled more than 50 countries,
Oh,
meeting the immigration authorities, meeting the labor authorities, to handling the audits, and I've experienced all lot of things in the travel space, right? And once in a and once upon a time, I think I was in a position to get deported from one of the country, not because of my
you have to share this story, I think.
it was not because of any compliance issue or my personal issue, but it was because of some challenges with the partner's relationship. So I was supposed to be deported. So I was sitting in the deportation place, and somehow I didn't get deported. But that's the kind of experience I had to go through in all my thing. And and today when we built this Immidart, I think it has a strong foundation of all this immigration background and knowledge. And it's not something you have built overnight kind of thing, right? It has a strong backing of almost 2 decades of immigration experience, working in a corporates, working globally, and understanding the nitty gritties of different regions, whether it's the US, Europe, Middle East, Africa. So that's how it's been built, and it has a strong foundation on that.
I am. It's amazing that you sort of started this journey in the finance route, and a lot of it came from your experience. I mean, as you said, maybe some happy accidents, but you know, at least you had some exposure to immigration through your travels, working in Kenya and then moving around. I'm curious, just if I can ask you a couple of questions. I'm curious, you took this job in Nairobi when you were a young man. I mean, right? And did you have a family already, or not yet when you first took the job?
No, I didn't had a family when I traveled, but within 2 years, definitely I had a family, and
Hmm.
I was with the family also for a couple of years over there,
Over there.
and then I decided to move back.
I'm curious because that's actually something a lot of people think about. Maybe not from an immigration standpoint, but from a travel standpoint. They think I can only travel before I have a family, right? I can only live abroad before I have a family. It's very rare to see that. What do you think? I mean, do you think it's possible to have and manage a career even for a little bit of time? I understand you want to be near grandparents, you want to be with your family or community, but for some period of time, do you think it is possible to manage sort of or balance having a family, but also take an opportunity on a long term assignment somewhere, or live somewhere else around the world?
I, I think it's quite possible. It depends on what kind of support systems you are having and the backing you're having at home. I think that's what it matters when you decide, right? And I always explore to be with the family. That's something what I always wish kind of thing. So that's how I was with the family. And if you see the reality, I think most of the people have apprehension saying that, is it safe to stay in Africa, right? In some part of the Africa. I'm not saying every part of the Africa, but touchwood, it was a great experience I had for 5 years. And I don't think I had any intent to come back unless I was getting into the family where I was happy leading the life over there. It was a good weather and it's a good destination in terms of the tourism, wildlife, and it's a wonderful place. So I had no intent to come back, but only once you were in the family way, we decided, okay, it's good to come back, and you need to compromise somewhere for a few things, right?
Do you think that, because after that, of course, you worked at Wipro, you handled immigration, but immigration internally, especially for such a large company, is not just documents. It's also supporting your employees with, with their international travel. The visa is the first step. I always thought about this when I worked as a lawyer, and the first time I went to a global mobility conference, my mind opened to how many more services there are after the visa. Okay, here's your passport with the visa, you enter the country. Now there's so much you need to do. You need to find a place to live, you need to maybe find a school or a job for your children or spouse. You need to understand local customs, maybe language and things like that. um, do you feel that the corporate, the immigration or global mobility team should play a role in that, supporting the client, and kind of, I guess, what have you seen from your time at Wipro with that kind of internal support?
So the practice, what I've seen in the Indian MNCs and the global MNCs, are kind of bit different, right? The way they work, kind of thing. And the focus was always has been on the immigration and supporting them in the travel and initial settling down kind of thing. I think few countries we used to support in terms of the relocation also, like wherever there was some government benefits available kind of thing. So you connect with them and try to help the employees also in terms of settling, getting the housing and all those things. But if you look at really right in Indian large companies, the scale and volume what we used to handle. So every project has enough number of people already moved over there, and the next set of people who used to get a support from their colleagues over there. So they always used to connect with them, get the help, and they used to ensure that they have been balanced with them or they have taken the support from them. They were not really looking at in terms of support having from external people or from relocation vendors kind of thing. That's because of the volume and the number of people used to be there already on the ground. But when you explore into the new regions, right, I think that's where we have been closely watching, and that's where I think we have been providing a right support and ensuring that we have a contracts with the right hotels over there and right maybe a logistical companies on the ground, and that's something what we have been ensuring over there. And one thing what we always used to do is when you get into a new geography, right, I think there is a strong SOP gets established, right, with the do's and don'ts and what things has to be done. So a lot of orientation will be done to the employees even before they travel. That was helping them. So there is a lot of support which have been given over there. But the countries where you already had a
Yeah,
presence, not much of support has been enabled.
that's interesting. That also shows that there's a lot of sense of community within the company, because you have, as you said, a number of people uh, who are, let's say, in America or Canada. I'm thinking of some very popular destinations, and so you can reach out to hundreds of, let's say, Wipro employees who maybe even in your city, maybe even where you're actually moving, who can help you, who can give you a sense of community, who can tell you, this neighborhood you want to live in, this neighborhood you don't, et cetera. It's really interesting. But that is a policy, right? You look at what you have, the resources you have. Here you have your built-in resources, great, and they do probably a better job than an external service would do anyway, because they cut you. These are folks that are coming from India, so they may know how to better advise their colleagues that are coming in than a destination service provider who maybe doesn't work with India too often or something. But then for, like you said, new geographies, that's when you take a step back and say, okay, we don't have that built-in network. How can we support our employees that they feel taken care of to some extent when they go to this new? That's really interesting. I just want to say we had a couple of comments here. So we have, Varalakshmi says, wow, which probably means it's a good thing. Archana says, hello, Sunder and Shrikanth. Great to see you and to hear your story. So thank you for your comment. And we have another LinkedIn user. It looks like their privacy doesn't allow us to show who they are, but they said you guys should do this often. So thank you for your comments and for supporting. And please, if you have any questions for Sunder Shrikanth, especially as we get into the story of Immidart, let them know. I want to jump into the story of Immidart. Just before we do that, I want to take a quick pause for just to say thank you to the second sponsor of the show, CaseBlink. So for those who may not know CaseBlink, CaseBlink is an AI platform that has been, growing and really transforming the way immigration law is practiced. So CaseBlink is built by attorneys and technologists and AI scientists. They started with complex writing heavy cases like EB2 NIWs, EB1s, O1s, and L1s, and they would automate the drafting, first the reading, organizing, and assembling of documents, and then eventually the drafting of letters and legal briefs that are very, very long. This is really what the great use case for AI was and still is. But CaseBlink has been growing. They've received some venture capital funding, which is exciting for them. They've built a studio feature, which allows immigration law firms that use them to draft things in the law firm's language and create reusable, prompts and of reusable voice. And then most recently, they actually rolled out forms and workflows, not just to support these EB cases, but family-based humanitarian cases, et cetera. So they're really growing in terms of their capabilities, built on the foundation of AI. So for folks who are watching, if you're an immigration law firm, especially if you're a small, solo or small firm, and you're getting a lot of these EB cases, and you're looking for support, maybe without the need for necessarily hiring additional staff right now, check out CaseBlink. The website is caseblink.com, or look at or check out the link in the show notes. So thank you to them. Okay, so on to you guys. Now, Sunder, I'm going to bring you back in. You were, you had this amazing arc, as an entrepreneur. You ended up building a business that was growing, supporting individuals who have family abroad with documentations, with services. At the same time, TTK Group, which is a large conglomerate in India, but does not really have much of a business in the service industry. It's more of a traditional company. They were looking at this too. We could probably have a separate podcast about how you connected with them and that whole process, because the M&A is such a fascinating process. But let's just skip that and say, okay, you had this marriage, you joined, and now you're providing this service within TTK, this sort of like documentation service. Now, you mentioned briefly that you were working with Wipro already on documentation. You were helping with some aspects of it as a vendor, and then you ended up getting into sort of helping them with visa documentation, and that's how the immigration service built in. Now, I know that you mentioned when we were talking offline that both of you don't remember maybe the moment that you two met, but I'm assuming at some point these conversations started bringing you in, Shrikanth, because you're on the immigration team. Sunder is on like the service provider team with the documentation. You're starting to work on supporting with immigration stuff. When did this conversation come up between the two of you where you realized that there's something more to be done? It's not just this service for documents and visas and work permits, but there's a need in the industry for technology, for a platform that can service companies like Wipro with a massive population of foreign nationals, especially when you're leaving India and going and working in other countries, in particular the US. How did that conversation sort of start to come about, or what were some of those early discussions that you guys had?
So I think by the time we came to the discussion on this business idea with Immidart, I think we have already had a long run with Wipro. And as I said, Vasudev Nayak, who was Shrikanth's boss, gave us the initial breakthrough, and post that he had moved to Infosys, and again we had an engagement with Infosys as well. And by then we had sort of penetrated most of the IT companies, and we used to have a very good relationship with Shrikanth, but mostly strictly as a vendor and the client relationship, but it was also personal. We used to, but it was never about exchanging business ideas. But somewhere around 2013 or so, I don't know, I think there was some germination of this idea of wanting to make this tool, internal tool, to commercialize it, or maybe do something with it from Shrikant's side. And he probably even tried internally with Wipro in terms of looking at spawning this off into a separate unit or something like that. But I think from Wipro's point of view, this is too small idea. It's like immigration is not the core business of Wipro, and rightly so, they probably didn't want to immediately support the idea. And during one of the meetups, I think with one more colleague of mine, a guy called Prabhu, who was second in command to me, I think Srikanth had expressed this interest that, look, we want to build a product like this or something like that. And given my entrepreneurial background, I have heard so many startup stories, many of them which never fructified. There are a lot of friends who want to start up business, want to have a casual chat with you, make use of you as a sounding board, and hence I was more than happy to meet Srikanth, and then we discussed about this idea. And at that point of time, I wasn't even sure if it could be pursued or something, but later on, when I went back, I was like saying, we are into the services business. We have a client base and we have some of the marquee clients working with us. But what if you bring a platform also into the picture? Does the whole idea make it one plus one is not two but four? Is there synergies that are driven by this kind of symbiotic relationship? And it appeared to me that yes, this could be a bigger thing than what we are doing then. So that's when I sort of started having more conversations. We met up in a couple of times at what you would call as the Starbucks of India, the coffee day in Bangalore, and several times at my office. And then once I was sort of convinced about it, I said, okay, let's go and meet our conglomerate chairman. We went, and I think at least twice he shot down the idea because it was way too far from the traditional cookware business, which is their forte, and they are the number one player in that market in India. And even the business that I run is pretty far from what the group does. So, but we were persistent, and I continuously went and knocked the doors, and probably third or fourth time, and he said, okay, bring on the new entrepreneur, let me meet the young chap. So that's when I took Srikanth, and he met both the Srikanths, and we had a conversation. We didn't do a deal then, but at least there was comfort level that these guys were genuine and we knew them for a long time, and there is synergy. And then over a couple of months, maybe 2 months, I think we patched up some deal, and then we requested Srikanth to quit. And since we already had an existing relationship with Wipro, we had to go back and get a sort of no objection for these guys to quit, because I didn't want to get into a conflict of interest
Of course.
clause because of that. So we had a no objection, and then they moved out, and then we started working on the idea. Srikanth, you want to probably give your perspective of it, or yeah, maybe fill in the gaps.
I think you covered most part of it, but I think how the ideas got generated, I think that's where the whole question is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, Roman, what we have been observing in the market, right? There were a few tools in early 2010s and 12s, right? There were tools in the market, but what we have been observing them as they're more focusing towards to your relocation or maybe an attorney market kind of thing. So the architecture was more supporting towards to that, not towards to the enterprise. The way the Indian companies work, the way the mobility function works in the Indian companies, that was not fitting into that. So there was a vacuum. So that was keeping always in our mind, saying that, okay, this is something what we should explore, kind of thing. And one thing what I normally used to do is when I talk to the global mobility professionals, I used to always ask them a question in terms of what are the challenges and how to address those challenges. And also during interviewing the candidates, also one of the always the thing what I used to catch up with them is on the challenge and how we can address, kind of thing. One standout problem always used to come is it's a system and the way the automation has to be done. That's something was always a challenge with everyone. And that's where this idea of, okay, let's, why can't we build this as a platform and give it as a to all the companies, is something, was a thought process which was really coming up. But I think the idea got really formed up for us. Okay, it's a good model and it could be a successful model. Is, I think, when Wipro BPO got an opportunity for a large RFP for immigration services along with the technology. At that point of time, I think the Wipro was not very keen to go for it. And that's, I think, something what we got a clarity saying that no, it's a good business model and there is a opportunity for us. And that's how we started forming up our thought process and then doing some groundwork in terms of what could be the market size, how it need to be approached, and kind of thing. And that's how we approached with Sundar, with whom we have been knowing him for a decade. And we thought, put up the thought process and see whether they can support us in terms of the funding and investing. I think it's good that the dots got connected over a period of time and we were able to start the Immidart in 2015.
Was it a big deal for you to leave Wipro and you had a great career, you managed over 100 people, you were doing this now for a decade, um, and you're now kind of, I don't want to say throwing it away because you see the big opportunity, but you're taking a big risk. Was it kind of was it stressful or challenging for you to make that decision to leave and join Immidart as a co-founder?
It was really not kind of that pressure point I went through because I had a strong backing from my family, especially my wife. She was also working and I had a good support from her. And we felt we had a good number of years of career which is left. And this is the right time we can take risk because once you have crossed certain age, maybe 45 or 50, it could be too, it may not be possible for to take the risk. So we felt, okay, now early 40s is the right time you can catch up and you have good number of years left in your career and maybe let's do an attempt in getting into entrepreneurship and see whether we can succeed. And fortunately, yes, we gone through with the pain, but I think we have done fairly bit well, and I think fairly successful, I would say, as of now.
That's amazing, and it's so important to have that backing of your family. A lot of the pressure is, what will happen if worst case scenario this doesn't work, and to have your family support you and understand that if that happens, I'll still, we'll figure it out. I think that relieves the stress, which actually makes it easier for you to make good decisions and to not, to be in a good mood even when you're a business owner. Right? I felt the same way. I was supported by, my family as well when I started. I left my job. Um, I worked as a lawyer and then I worked in finance, and I had a good job, and I starting laborless was a risk for sure. But you know, the fear is always, will I end up without a home, living on the street if it doesn't work out? If the answer is no, go for it. So cool. So let's talk a little bit about Immidart now. So you guys got together. You had this, thought process. You had this experience in house, Shrikanth. You saw the need for a platform that's really purpose built for a company like Wipro. This internal point of view, not the point of view of an immigration attorney or another service provider. You guys had friends. I mean, Shrikanth, your old boss is now, or at that time, I suppose at some point left and went to Infosys, right? Is that right? Is that what you went to Infosys?
Yeah,
Yeah, and then there's a number of other companies based in India that have a big immigration presence in the U.S. and otherwise. So you saw the need, and Sundar, you guys had the capital and you have the the opportunity. So you got the go ahead eventually from the chairman. You got some seed money, to make this possible, which is really nice, by the way, because now you don't have to worry about raising money from investment firms and kind of dealing with that stress. What were some of those first steps that you guys took to build the platform? Because you started in 2015, but as far as I understand, it took a few years to really get this going. You can't just roll out some beta platform for a company like Wipro. This is big numbers and a lot of people, and you can't make mistakes. So, how did you go through that process of building a platform that was immediately going to support large enterprises?
Shrikant, you want to answer that?
Yeah, I think the first important aspect what we looked at is in terms of conceptualizing, because during the interactions, what we have been hearing is every company has its own process, right? So nothing in terms of the static things will work. So it has to be a configuration driven, which can be acceptable to every organization. So that's how the design, it took almost 3 to 4 months to ensure that we have done the right documentation. And really, the credit should go to my co-founder, Mr. Shrikant Naik. He has done a great work in terms of conceptualizing. Almost he sat for almost 3 or 4 months to ensure that the documentation is drafted correctly and given to the technical team, right? And parallelly, what we did is we were eyeing on in terms of couple of resources who were technically strong and who had a practical experience of developing such applications. So uh, parallelly, what we did, we tapped these resources, we onboarded. By the time your documentation and everything is ready, we have the technical resource also onboarded, and then the journey started in terms of developing. It took almost 15 months, approximately 15 months to develop and ensure that we are kind of ready to start doing the demos to the client and everything. And initial reactions were really good. They were positive about the application, the way it has come up, because they have seen something in the market which meets up their expectation readily, kind of thing. But something what we have not factored over there is how difficult it is to onboard the clients, especially in the enterprise market. That's something we are always positive thought process, saying that okay, the things will happen immediately, we will start getting the money, we will get starting getting the revenue. And once you landed up over there, while Sundar has been always alerting us, this is not something you can easily get. It needs a lot of, it takes a lot of time. And unless, so one of the golden statement always Sundar used to give me, saying that unless the money hits your account, nothing is guaranteed.
Yeah.
So that's something is always keeps cautioning me. And initially, I used to get kind of, oh, okay, what Sundar is saying. But eventually, I realized over a period of time, that's the truth, right? So it was not easy to, well, everyone was happy with the demonstrations and everything. It was not happy to onboard. It's very difficult to onboard them because you don't have any backing or a reference in terms of any use cases kind of thing who have used these systems. And it was very tough actually, and it has to go through the budget cycle. So eventually what happened, it took almost 2 years by the time we completed it, right? And when we onboarded the first client, it was almost 2 years.
Wow.
So that's how difficult it was, that journey. And but it's very important we stay focused, and we know we have done something, and now it's on us how you market it and ensure you kind of. But once you have onboarded the first client and once you have been successful with them, I think the journey was not too difficult, right? So in the next 2 years, we were able to onboard few more clients, and we were kind of very confident. Now we are in the process of break even in 2019, but unfortunately, the destiny was different. The COVID hit us, and it
Mm.
pulled us back. And there are quite a good number of opportunities we were in the process of signing, kind of thing. All were put on hold, and from 2020 March till 2022, everything got kind of completely stagnant, kind of thing. Nothing more. Good that we had some client base whose people were already in on destination of the host countries, and they need support, kind of thing. So that's where the systems were live, while their subscription quantities might have gone down, but there was a minimum requirement, kind of thing was there. So and it was not easy. Those days are actually very tough, because you have gone through a lot of pressure points. You don't have a right cash flow. You need to ensure that you keep the confidence of the investors. At the same time, you need to keep the morale of the employees also, because the COVID is the time where I think in India there was a lot of demand for IT professionals. And in that scenario, when the people know, okay, there is no demand for a travel, and I'm sure this immigration industry may not have also the two demand for them during this time, right? So it was very tough for to put that brave face in front of the employees and ensure that your investors have the confidence on you that okay, the things will turn around in a year or so. And I think Sundar and played a great role in terms of managing this, or at least guiding us whenever required. And I think the chairman also put a lot of support to us, and he was saying he was able to understand it. Okay, this is what the situation is, and I'm sure he was confident that things will be able to turn around after some time. And post 2022, I think it's a lot of changes happened and things got brightened. And it's the Capgemini project, something which really pulled us, right? We started the journey with the Capgemini in 2020 when the COVID was there, and all implementations started virtually, and we went with business visa only initially, and eventually we moved that program of the entire work assignment also, and the global movement, right? So that's something was we covered over there. So Capgemini gave us a lot of confidence, and it put us on our kind of, you are able to stand on your own legs now. And we turned profitable in 2022, and things are doing good post that. And today I think we are processing close to 100,000 transactions in the system now. It's not a small volume which gets handled. There are around 90 countries where the visas are getting processed. 300 different visa types are getting processed, and 100,000 is not a small volume. That's something is dealt with, right?
Yeah.
And for more than 90 countries, and there are 57 nationalities are using the system now. It's not something like India outbound or US inbound system. It's completely cross geographical movements what is happening in the system now.
I have a really good question from Varalakshmi here that I just want to bring up here because it's a really good time. So Varalakshmi asks, when you started the business, there was no internet or advanced tools like we have today. I mean, I think when you guys started Immidart, there was, of course, but let's just say that things have still changed over the past decade. Technology has evolved quite a bit, especially with AI. So her question is, do you ever feel that if you had resources like what we have today back then, do you think you would have grown or built things differently, maybe faster or better?
Absolutely. I think there's no doubt. Like, if you even had to build Immidart again today, you would probably take a different approach. You would definitely take a AI first approach versus what we did in 2015. We still made it very configurable and everything, but it was not a AI first approach. But now we are adapting to it, and we are trying to bring in elements of AI where it will be really adding value to the whole system. So definitely, with every point of time, depending on what technology is available, things are going to get faster, better. So I would say, Varalakshmi, definitely we could have done things much faster than what we could achieve maybe 10 years back, or even when I started my first idea, that we probably slogged it out for so many months, and to build a system, very rudimentary system. Yeah.
Well, just on that point, Sundar, your first business actually wouldn't have existed if this technology existed, because your first business was solving for the fact that there was no technology.
No,
That's what's
no
really cool about
technology.
it, you know?
Exactly.
So it's interesting. I love to think about how there are always opportunities. Now a lot of people think, oh, well, AI, that's it. There's no more business. There's going to be tons and tons of business opportunities. AI is going to be a tool that will allow us to, build things differently or more quickly. But there's actually I see advertisements for different services and companies on social media and elsewhere. There are companies now that are bridging the gap between people who are don't know much about AI and want to learn or need to learn how to use it, and their companies. So, for example, they're saying if you want to become a more useful or productive employee with AI, use our service. We're going to give you, let's say, a crash course on 20 different AI products, and then you can use that at your workplace. So even now, there's a business to be had where you bridge the gap between, let's just say, have-nots and haves and have-nots. For you, it was email and internet. Right now, it's AI knowledge. So I just think it's really, I love seeing the patterns because it reminds you that there is always going to be opportunity. It's just a matter of how you look at the problem and how you sort of, you know, get creative with the potential solution. I want to ask you guys, as we start to wrap up here, I know you need to go to bed. It is late in India, and thank you both again so much for being, so gracious with your time. Right now, Immidart supports large corporates, as you said, probably most, if not all, of the large IT providers in India. Certainly, the ones that are providing, that have outbound immigration. I know that you also do provide services for practitioners. Can you talk a little bit about that, just so people get an understanding of, is Immidart something that I should check out or no? Who should look at it, basically?
Shrikanth?
Yeah. No, I think as of now, the focus has always been on enterprise market, but we do have kind of application which fits into the service providers, but we have not aggressively marketed it because we are now in a process of bringing some AI initiatives into that, and we wish to go through with that process first and ensure that we go to the market aggressively post that. So once we have that AI initiatives are being done, especially in terms of your document processing, or it could be in terms of compilation, preparation of the petitions, and there are a lot of initiatives we have been taking. And once it is done, I think that's where we will be going aggressively into the attorney market or into the service market. But today, the focus has been always into the enterprise market or the corporates who process large number of volumes, whether it's in-house or whether it is through the attorneys. That's where the focus has been. And we always extend our application to the attorneys because with whomever the corporates work with the attorneys, right, we do extend our systems to them and they do get an access to it. And they have an option to process over there. But having said that, some of them have their own system to operate, so they operate on their own system. So that's where we are in the next space. We are looking up, okay, whether we can integrate with them and we can marry with both the systems. So at least with the major law firms is something what we are exploring at this point.
Yeah, and
Roman,
a lot of. Oh, go ahead, Sunder.
yeah, no, in my mind, I think there is not one company that can solve the problems for everybody in the ecosystem. There is the enterprise client, there is the immigration attorneys, there is the embassies that are there, then there is the employee or customer who's applying for work permit or a visa or whatever kind of immigration application. I think there will be opportunities for different companies to tap into different segments, and actually, there is a good opportunity for different players to integrate with each other and create an ecosystem. I mean, like labelless is doing something, and it makes sense for people to not reinvent the wheel. There may be two or three players like you who are there. There isn't space for 10, 15 people. So it makes sense for players to sort of integrate and become an ecosystem that is useful for the client from start to end. That's what should be the outlook. So we don't want to be getting into everything that is there. We want to be doing what we are doing better, faster, and being able to deliver continuously value to our customers and add more customers in every segment. For example, recently we've been working with some POCs for TN visas in the US, which is totally different from the IT segment that we have been focusing on, or what Immidart has been catering to in terms of H1Bs and stuff like that. So, but this is with the new regulations, the new crackdowns that are happening in the US. homegrown or indigenous US companies are also facing the heat in terms of ensuring compliance. So that is where we think there is space for everybody to grow. There are challenges that attorneys are facing where companies that are providing solutions to attorneys would be able to grow. So we need to look at each one needs to grow in their spaces and be able to build an ecosystem to provide value to customers. I think that's the best thing. And in our goal right from the beginning was to not to build a system or a platform that was only one country centric, which is like it's not India, US, or US inbound from anywhere in the world. No. We said it is completely agnostic, country agnostic, it is anywhere to anywhere. So we are able to handle nationalities anywhere, dual nationalities, any country, seamless. So that's the kind of foundation that we have laid for the product, which I think is helping large clients being able to move talent seamlessly across borders.
Who do you think should be reaching out to you or should be going to your website to learn more? Who's your target kind of
I think
profile?
all customers, enterprise clients who are facing issues or maybe think they can do better with a tool if they are not having a tool. I know many companies still use spreadsheet, SharePoint, Salesforce system, which is slightly made hybrid to follow some flow processes. But it needs to evolve with time. The immigration scenario landscape is so dynamic today that you don't know what's going to happen today, what kind of regulations are going to change. So you need a system that can evolve like really on a daily basis. If any changes are happening, we should be able to reflect that to clients, make sure they are compliant with it.
And now, what about, okay, so a company says we would love to learn more about a technology that can support our in house team. If they have outside counsel, it's very likely that outside counsel has their own tools, right?
Tools,
So,
yeah.
so there's usually a employer dashboard or view or something. And then to your point, then there's some aspects of the immigration that the employer handles completely on their own, and that's maybe where they're using, a spreadsheet or some very crude database that they've built. So would the idea be that if a large, especially a large enterprise, but even an SME, um, looks into Immidart, would it compromise their work or somehow get in the way of the tools that they use with their outside counsel?
I don't necessarily think it should be that way because I think we are past the era where the clients or the large companies can conveniently say this has been given to my attorney and hence I am not liable for anything. End of the day, all liability still lies with you. So it's good to have a tool that is tracking your own processes, and many of the attorney tools that are focused to the immigration attorney firms will not be able to fit in seamlessly into your internal company processes. Your internal company might have certain processes of which and guidelines that you need to follow or certain thresholds that should not be exceeded. Those kind of things are definitely better handled on a system like ours. So in my mind, if you integrate, companies can go for this kind of a tool, and we are becoming more and more flexible that even small companies can use the tool, and we are inching towards a situation where people can just sign up for the service online without having any need to sort of implement the tool. It's a SaaS that you can subscribe to online and get started.
I
Like,
see.
so enterprise clients can use these tools, even small SME clients can use it. And then if there is an integration with the attorney firm, which is probably using one of the like the sponsors that you mentioned about or some other popular tool, then if the integration is there, then the attorneys have their information in their tool, the companies have the information, same information that is relevant to them in their tool. The immigration tool used by the attorney firms will not perfectly fit the the enterprise clients.
Right. So Immidart is open to integration through API or something like that.
Absolutely. We have already integrated with a lot of companies, but those are on the HRMS side for the companies to be able to pull data from the HRMS system and send data back. So we have integrated with SAP, we have Oracle Fusion, then Workday, Concur. All of these are integrated with attorney firms. We have started, I mean, attorney based software. We have started with some people, but we are open to like
Yeah.
anybody who wants to reach out to us and look at opportunities to integrate and be able to provide a seamless experience for the clients. We would be happy, and we would also pursue that path.
Yeah. Same here.
Yeah.
That's we've been talking
Yeah.
about APIs and integrations for a number of years, and I think finally it's started to happen.
Yes.
Before I let you go, there are a couple of just comments. This is a long one, but Chandrasekhar says he got to know a lot more personal things about each of you today. It was amazing. So thank you, Chandrasekhar, for your comment. Archana says excellent session. So thank you so much for your comment. And Vishwas says it's a great session. So it's really nice to see some of our industry friends and colleagues joining in and leaving a comment. The last question I have for the both of you is a question that I've been sort of. I think it's been really interesting for me to hear these answers and hopefully helpful. A lot of times they say, "What's some advice that you would give yourself 10 years ago, 20 years ago, etc." But nobody ever asks, "What advice are you following now?" So that's my question to you guys. What's advice that you guys currently, where you are today with your careers, with your business, what's some advice that you're currently in the present following that's been maybe helping you get through something from a business standpoint or otherwise? Shrikanth, I'll go with you first. I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but
Yeah.
I think the things what were comfortable maybe 5 years back or 10 years back, right? Whenever you develop something, you always used to feel a confidence saying that, okay, your shelf life of the product is at least there for 3 4 years or maybe 5 years. But today I think that's the confidence I think everyone has lost. So you don't know what's the shelf life of your product, whether it's a 6 months or 1 year or even maybe 3 months, right? The way things are changing. So that's something I think we had to the advice to the entire team over here. We need to be watchful. We need to ensure that whatever the new things that comes up, we should be the first to adopt ourselves and ensure that those things are being implemented. And AI is the first initiative, right? That's something we have been starting using aggressively, all possible AI tools into the development and how quickly we can do the development. Now the advice is very simple: how quickly you can do a turnaround, and that will be a success story. So things cannot wait for 3 months or 6 months for anything to be done. It has to be quickly, and with the AI tool, how best we can do it. Trust me, things are working very positively on that direction. And the things what we thought, okay, it might take month or two to develop, I think we are able to do a turnaround of a week, right? So that something is amazingly happening, and I think these AI tools are literally doing really good work in terms of giving the right code. Only thing what we need to improve ourselves in terms of how we give the prompt to them and how we get the documentation correct, so that your code can be something like 80 90% correct, right? Today it could be around 60 65%. So how you further improvise it and how you ensure that entire thing is done through and test automation, and that life cycle of the test automation also goes through very fast. So how you quickly turn around the things, that's I think is the advice I'll have to the entire team over here. That will made you kind of either success or failure way forward, I think.
thank
Yeah.
you. Sunder?
I wouldn't probably advise on a specific business, but this would be my advice to any aspiring entrepreneurs. Basically, always, I think cash is king. So you need to ensure that you manage your cash flows well, because there are many people who sort of think that you can keep raising funding without actually getting money into the kitty in terms of clients, paying clients. So I think one needs to really look at how do you provide value to your customers such that they are ready to pay for it. So that is going to be very important, and the sand is shifting extremely fast. As Srikanth was saying, the shelf life of the product is very much shortened. So is the shelf life of a company. So unless companies continuously pivot, continuously adopt new technologies, new ways of doing business, they are likely to perish. So we are happy to be alive for so long as a business, and we want to continue doing that better and better. So that would be my focus, and that's what I keep goading and pushing the Immidart team and Shrikant to do it. That's my constant advice to them.
So one point to add, Roman, if any new entrepreneurs coming in, my sincere suggestions as advice to them, you can be positive in terms of outcome. Yes, that's how you need to be. You need to be positive in terms of thought process. Everything will happen good and it will go as per the plan. But please do prepare for the worst of the worst. And if you have a resources in place where you can take care, okay, I can, if something goes worst, at least 50% of that scenario, if you have ability to take and if you have a resource in place, that's where you start the business. Otherwise, please rethink, replan. That's something what my always sincere advice have been. Prepare for the worst. Have always the positive thoughts in terms of things will always turn positive, but always prepare for the worst.
Thank you for that advice. It's I appreciate it, and I really love this conversation, guys. Thank you. Even while you were talking, we had a Suvant Kid says a wonderful session. Sudarshan said, "Good luck to all of you on your vision, the foundation you're working on building a better digital world for professional global mobility and immigration domain." So thank you guys for the comments, and Sunder, Shrikanth, thank you both so much. I really appreciate it. This has been, it's very interesting. I learned more about you guys and your journey, and definitely a lot more about Immidart. So I hope folks can come check you out. If they want to learn more about Immidart, they can visit the website at immidart.com, Immidart. And I will let you both go because I know it's late in India and you guys need to go to bed. So thank you again. I really appreciate it. And thanks for coming on.
We would like to thank all the people who attended this session, and if they have been from India, it's pretty late. Big thank you, a big shout out for being there with us, listening to our story. Thank you very much, and obviously, a big thank you and shout out to Roman for giving us this opportunity to be part of this 127th episode. Thank you very much, and Roman, we do look forward to your yearly visits to India. We should catch up. Look
I'll
forward
be
to
back. Yeah, absolutely. Me too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Roman. Thanks, everyone.
Good night, guys. Thank you. What a great episode. And again, thanks to everybody who's stayed up and watched and listened, especially from India. I know it's late and I know it's Friday night for you. So I hope this was valuable. I hope it was interesting. It certainly was for me. I love all the twists and turns across the early stages of Sunder's business and how that evolved into what eventually became Immidart. And I love this concept of marrying. I mean, what a great co-founding team. You have a lot of in-house experience, from a high-volume environment at Wipro, coming together with a service provider and a company that is able to build technology, and then you really build something for the industry. Big thank you, lastly, to DocketWise once again for sponsoring this episode. For those who may not know, DocketWise is an all-in-one immigration case management platform with immigration forms, customizable questionnaires in a lot of different languages, integrations. We talked about APIs on this episode, and actually DocketWise was the first company, as far as I know, in the immigration technology space to have open APIs where anybody can integrate with them. And this was a number of years ago. So they've been leading the way there. They have great customer service. They have a lot of great resources, including many free resources. So for immigration lawyers, and for in-house folks too who want to learn more about U.S. immigration, check out DocketWise, their podcasts, their ebooks, their blogs. There's a lot of wonderful information there. And so you can visit them at www.docketwise.com to learn more. And of course, if you reach out to them to get a demo, use the link in the show notes or let them know that you came to them from the GMI Rocket Show. So with that, thank you everybody for joining. Thank you everybody for sticking around, for your wonderful comments and questions, which always make these conversations lively. Have a wonderful weekend and stay safe out there. Thanks.